Hi, welcome to Stories of Retirement. Real people, real stories. And today, on this beautiful summer day, I've got Kathy on the program. Welcome, Kathy.
Thank you for having me, Martin. Really appreciate it.
Okay, no problem. I appreciate your time. Let's start, like as we always do, with a little bit about your story. We'll kind of go from post school, high school, college, but after college until retirement. Tell us a bit about your life.
Okay. Well, I was a teacher for 35 years.
Mhm.
I started teaching in California, which is where I'm from, and then married and moved to Utah and taught here for 30 years. I taught first and second grade my
Uh,
entire career, which I loved. I loved every day because every day is a new day.
I
You don't
bet.
do the same twice ever. So, and then I retired from the school district in 2005, but I kept working in the education field for many years after that. I was the curriculum and instruction director at two different schools. One was at a very high-risk school,
Hmm.
and I mean, you have to have the key to get in the building and everything. It was
Wow.
always locked down. And the other one was at the other end of the spectrum. It was a private school. And I didn't work there very long. It was kind of more fun to work at the at-risk school and really make a difference.
Right.
Um, and those were both part-time jobs. I also,
Can I ask, Kathy, did you do that because you needed the money or because you just enjoy doing it or you didn't want to be bored?
it was kind of both. And my husband was still working full-time.
Oh,
So um, I liked working.
hmm.
I did enjoy working and I liked working with kids.
Right.
I did a short stint of teaching at a university with adults, and I really prefer teaching children over
Oh,
adults.
okay.
So I went back to doing the kids stuff. I also was a student teacher supervisor for a university, and I did that up until 2020.
Okay.
When COVID hit and I couldn't go into classrooms anymore to observe the teachers, it just got to be ridiculous trying to observe and evaluate a teacher online, like a
Right.
Zoom call. It's a little different. So I stopped doing that after COVID, but that was in 2020. So I worked up until what, 4 years ago?
Just 4 years ago.
Not
Okay.
full time,
So,
not full
so
time.
are you
And then a
evaluating me
colleague
right
and I,
now?
of course,
Okay.
always,
Just I'll be on my best behavior,
always.
Kathy.
And a colleague and I actually started a business and we wrote books for kindergarten teachers. And we went around the country doing presentations at conferences
Wow.
and things like that. Really enjoyed that. That was a lot of fun. Um,
And are those books still available? The books you wrote?
from me, yes.
Okay,
From
from you.
me.
But you're not
I have
actively
some,
selling those anymore?
no,
Okay.
not anymore. And I'll tell you a little bit later why that stopped.
Oh, okay.
Um, Yeah, so that's pretty much my career. I mean, it was teaching and working with teachers and students my whole
Well,
life.
sounds
Yeah.
very gratifying. And I will say thank you on behalf of all the parents of those
Oh,
students and everyone else and society as a whole for making this a slightly better world. I appreciate that. And I think we all do.
thank you. Hopefully, I made a difference in some people's lives. I certainly hope so. They certainly made a difference in mine.
Great, great.
So,
So, what
yeah.
are you glad that you did preparing for retirement? If you prepared at all, it sounds
I'm
like you're pretty busy.
okay. I'm glad I was a teacher.
Hmm.
I'm really glad I was a teacher because the state retirement system takes care of me.
Right.
My husband also was in civil service. He worked for the sheriff's office. And so we both had retirement through the
Hmm.
state retirement system. My husband and I were really bad at saving.
Oh,
We tried, but we always spent it. We'd save and then we'd spend it. Um, we we were just middle class, just doing our thing kind of people.
hmm.
And, we lived paycheck to paycheck a lot of years and, brought up our two sons and my husband also has two daughters that we saw and love them. We still keep in touch.
Right.
Um, so I think, I think we didn't prepare very well. I mean,
Okay.
that bottom line, we didn't prepare very well, but we also knew that we had that we had a retirement plan through the state, and Social Security, and figured that would probably be enough.
Right. And just so in case
And
listeners don't understand,
luckily, it has been.
yeah, when you work for a school district or like your husband's case, the sheriff's department, government entities, oftentimes you get a pension, and a pension is simply a
Yes,
guaranteed monthly income for the rest of your life. You cannot live it. You don't have to choose
rest of my
it.
life.
You don't manage it. You don't
Nope.
pick the investment funds like with 401ks. You basically it's completely hands off, which in many ways is a wonderful thing if you're not good at doing those things. So yeah, so
Yes.
you chose your career as well, I guess, based on your kind of money or financial personalities of kind of spending and saving most of your life.
Yes. Even that was kind of, that was just automatic. It happened. We didn't even
Right.
plan to have retirement. As we got closer to retirement, obviously we thought, okay, how much money are we going to have in
Right.
retirement? Made sure that we could do that in, making decisions about homes
Yeah.
and things like that.
Yeah.
So
And I found that oftentimes with civil servants like yourself and your husband, that sometimes you end up having more money in retirement or higher income even than when you were working, or at least
I
very
I
close.
have more money now than I've ever had.
Okay. Well, that's got to feel kind of nice.
Yes, I do.
Awesome. Awesome. Are there
There's a
things,
trade-off with that too.
sure. Are there
Yeah.
things you wish you had done to prepare for
Oh,
retirement?
yeah. I wish we had saved more,
Okay.
but we didn't. So, wishing and hoping doesn't do much good. So,
Right.
yeah, I wish we had done more, saved more. I also wish that sometimes people, including us, put off things that we want to do until we can afford them.
Right.
And it's too bad because we missed out on a lot of things because we thought we couldn't afford anything.
Right.
And if I had it to do over again, I would say, okay, let's make sure we have enough money to do it. Let's really plan to do this and do
Right.
it.
And
So,
you said the word, I think an important word there. You said the word plan. And I'm going to show off here just a little bit. You know this about me, Kathy. I've written some poems, but there's one poem called The
yes,
Power of a Plan. I'm just going to repeat it very quickly. I think I have it memorized. People often ask, have you advice for me? Should I invest in stocks or bonds or a rental property? Investing in a plan is the best thing you can do. Planning gives perspective and a clearer point of view. People go through life dealing with their stuff. They hope that in the end they'll somehow have enough. But when you have a plan and review it once a year, you look forward to a future with very little fear. You'll also have the peace of mind of having truly done your best. You'll live a life with a lot less stress. To make your money work in a way that's right for you, starting with a plan is the best thing you can do. And the reason I bring that up, and by the way, if any of these listeners want a copy of that, reach out to me, email me, I'll send you a free copy of it. I brought that up because you mentioned you wish you had done some things you thought you couldn't afford. When you have a plan, you could look at your pension, you can project in the future, or your 401k, and look at where you are right now. And then the plan will help you know, yes, you can take that trip, or you can buy that ATV or RV or whatever it is. But having a plan, like I said earlier in the poem, gives a clear perspective and a clearer point of view. So I encourage everyone, have a plan, really look to the future, and then, yes, live life to the fullest according to that plan. So
exactly.
how was retirement the way you envisioned it,
It
if at all?
wasn't.
It wasn't. Tell us more.
No, it was not as planned. It was not as imagined, although it started out that way.
Mhm.
After my husband and I both retired, well, no, he hadn't retired, but I retired in 2005 officially from the school district. But
Right.
as I said, I kept working. He retired officially from the sheriff's office in 2001, and then he became a constable and did some other things, had his own company, and he worked up until 2018.
Okay.
So in the meantime, in 2007, we built a new home. And so I was retired and we built this beautiful new home. Keep in mind the date,
7, right.
2007.
Okay. Yes. Home prices were
And
about to adjust.
we were selling our other house we thought we'd get a decent amount of money for and would help pay for the new house.
Right.
Well, the real estate market just crashed and we lost that house, the
Oh,
house that we were in. We almost lost the new one too. But the outcome of that was that our monthly mortgage payment for our new house was astronomical.
Right.
And it was really, really hard. And we had lost the other house. The bank took it. It was a nightmare for, and so we took 10 years to make up that fiasco, if you will. It
Mm-hmm.
was horrible. It was horrible. And so in that 10 years that we were in the new house, we did do some traveling. We went on a cruise through the Panama Canal, which was
Mm.
wonderful. We went to Hawaii a couple times. We went to the Caribbean. We really got into the travel thing a little
Right.
bit, a lot. We always planned we wanted to go to Italy. That was our plan. Okay, so we kept planning to do that. Well, then in 2016, unfortunately, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And so that kind of puts a halt to every plan that
Mm.
we had. So for
Yeah.
almost, well, a year and a half at least, I was doing chemo, I was having surgeries, there were some complications. So he was taking care of me. Um, when I was first diagnosed, I shouldn't laugh. When I was first diagnosed, I said, "Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? You
Right.
can't take care of me." He said, "What do you mean I can't take care of you?" I said, you barely know how to boil water. How can you possibly take care of me?" And I was really upset. And he totally rose to the occasion. He took care of me totally,
Right.
totally. And we became much closer. My family became closer. There were some real upsides.
Wow.
How can I say an upside to cancer and chemotherapy? But also, we decided that we weren't going to let this take over our lives. So there was always 1 week between my chemo treatments where I was pretty good. I was pretty healthy.
Okay.
So we would travel every time we went to San Francisco. We didn't take long trips, but we went to San Francisco for a few days, went to a Giants game. I grew up there
Mm-hmm.
and my brother's still there. We went to Antelope Canyon and walked through there. We would have never done that. We went to Bryce Canyon in the middle of winter. We did some interesting things that we probably wouldn't have done. And
Right.
we enjoyed them. And it had to be planned and it had to be timed because the rest of the time I was either having chemo or was not feeling so hot.
Right.
So that kind of put everything in hold. And that also put an end to my business, the business that we
Oh,
had, my friend and I had, because I just couldn't do it anymore. It
right.
was too hard to do that when I wasn't feeling well. I was actually still doing mentoring student teachers. I was still
Huh.
going on my good days, but we weren't traveling. I was traveling to different cities to observe teachers.
Mm-hmm.
So I was still doing that. They had to understand that if I wasn't feeling well, I'd cancel. But anyway, so then we decided that, well, my husband kind of decided that we had a huge house. It had a theater and it had a pool. It had everything. But there were only two of us, and it was kind of
Right.
stupid to keep that house. So he said, let's go look in St. George. Well, St. George was the last place I ever wanted to move because it's so hot down there.
Yes, it is.
But we did. We built a home in St. George. And it was right at the end of all my surgeries and everything. So that was in 2017, end of 2017. And we built a house, a beautiful home, but it was downsized from what we were there. My
Okay.
husband loved to work on cars, and he had built a 65 Chevelle from scratch with my son. And then when we were down there, he bought a 1930 something, I don't know what it was, but
Wow.
anyway, it was in the garage. I was getting ready to work on that. And we moved in February of 2018. In August of 2018, my husband sold his business and we were ready to do retirement.
All right. Here it
Okay, we're
comes.
gonna go
Yes.
to Italy, we're gonna do all these, yes, I mean, we're gonna travel, we're gonna do our plan.
And by this
And this
time,
is where
the
things like
cancer is now in remission now, or it's gone.
cancers treatments are done. I still had a few problems, but all in
Okay.
all, hey,
Good.
one day at a time. So we were doing great. We were loving life. It was great. Unfortunately, my husband passed away December of 2018.
Wow.
very suddenly. And all of a sudden, the plan is gone and I'm alone. So I was alone. And I thought, now what am I going to do?
Mm.
Well, I'm not one to just sit down and let life run over me. So I started learning how to do things like mowing a lawn, which I'd never done, and doing those kinds of things. But I stayed there for about 3.5 years after my husband passed away, and I just the heat was getting to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I bought a home in a 55 plus community that was closer to my children, my boys and my grandkids. And this is where I live now, way downsized from my house. But I'm living in a community where I never thought I'd live. Um, and when I first moved here, it was when all the houses were sky high, and I bought it like in a day because I needed to get out of my house because it sold in 3 days in
Oh,
St.
wow.
George. So it was kind of one of those off the cuff decisions. And when I moved in, I thought, oh, what did I do?
Right.
But it's really been the right decision for me, even though it wasn't a plan. Uh, and I live in a community where I love my neighbors are very supportive. It's a safe neighborhood. I'm involved in the community.
Mm-hmm.
So I keep busy and I like
Good.
it. Um,
And that's how I met you. My band played at your community, the little
that's right.
at
That's
your
right. That's
rec
how
center
we
there.
met.
Yes.
Mhm. Um, so it was a big adjustment though, to be alone.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
And your
a
husband
friend
had he wasn't ill at all or even slowing down. It was very sudden, his passing.
extremely sudden.
Okay.
I don't want to go into the details, but we thought he had the flu. I took him, we were actually up at doctor's appointments for me, and
Mm.
he didn't feel well, thought he had the flu. He was really getting sick, and we needed to drive home. And we took him to the hospital on a Saturday morning, and he passed away Monday morning. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah, it was very, very sudden. So I had, I didn't know how to do things. I didn't know his passwords. I didn't know how
Mm.
to get into accounts. I didn't even know what accounts there were. So
Right.
one of my advice things down the road here is make sure that you have everything written down because you never know what's going to happen.
Right.
So that would be part of my advice to people. Um, but a year after my husband passed away, I was still in St. George, and a friend of mine who had also lost her husband many years before said, "Do you want to go on a trip with me?" And I said, "Oh, no, I don't know, and I hemmed and hawed about it, and I thought, why not? I'm not doing anything but
Right.
feeling well, it wasn't lonely, but I was alone. And so we went to see, where did we go? We went to Vietnam, Singapore, Hong Kong.
Boy, that's off the beaten path.
Yeah, yeah, it was. And it wasn't anywhere I had on my bucket list at all.
Mm-hmm.
But we went and we had a great time. It was fun to be together, and it was a great tour. And I certainly saw places I would never have chosen to see, although I would
Right.
love to go to Singapore. I love Singapore. Um, so after that, I decided that even though my husband was gone, I was going to take that trip to Italy.
Mm.
So I planned a trip to Italy and Greece, and I went last year, or the year before, I think it was last year. I went to Italy and Greece. I just got back from a Rhine River trip in April. I went
Mm-hmm.
on a trip from Switzerland to Amsterdam. I've been to Alaska. I took my son to the Formula One races in Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Wow.
where else have I been? No, a few other places locally. Alaska with my brother, and I'd been there a few times. And then I've got an Iceland, Greenland, Nova Scotia, New York trip planned for next month. Then I'm
Mm.
going on an African safari in August. And in October, I'm going to Mexico for a week. So I
I,
am, I do a lot of vacation planning
right.
for myself.
I'm getting tired just thinking
And
about
I
it. Boy.
and I like the planning, I think, as much as I like the trip itself. I do
Mm,
a total itinerary for myself and complete with pictures and where I'm going every day and everything. I love to do that. Somebody told
hmm.
me once I should have been a travel agent, but really I only like to do it for myself.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so that's kind of my story. We didn't plan very well, and unfortunately, my husband would have loved to have traveled to all these places, although we would
Right.
not live here if my husband were alive because there's not enough yard for him to take care of because he did like gardening. So, um, I don't know. What else do you want to know?
Well, see, I
Uh,
think we've covered most of the things. How's I guess retirement is different than you envisioned. Obviously, you didn't plan your husband
Very
passing
different,
the way he did.
very different than I envisioned. Yes. Yes,
Uh,
we would have still been in St. George.
right.
And
And you had some well, some setbacks. Obviously, passing your husband is a big setback. Losing the house is a big setback. And
oh,
yet you're still
that was,
happy and are able to travel in
yeah,
part because of your pension, I think, or combined pensions.
yes, yes. Financially, I am doing fine. I've obviously invested some money. That's,
Right.
I you as my guide. And so I've got some things invested. My pension actually takes mine, and I did get 65% of my husband's,
Hmm.
and I get Social Security. So really my everyday expenses are totally paid for by the state of Utah, um, which I didn't get paid much when I was a teacher,
Right.
so the perk is, besides being a teacher and loving it, is getting a pension that I can survive on. And I do very well. I have enough money that I can put money away every month for my travel. I have a separate account where I
Hmm.
put money every month for my travel. And because I've kind of gone overboard this year, I probably won't travel nearly as much next year. But this year I really got carried away and I have 4 or 5 trips. So
Yeah. And these are not
I'm
small
loving
trips.
it.
Yeah, these are big trips you're taking
And I'm
this
taking
year.
big trips to the
Yeah.
country. I think next year I'll probably stay in the United States for a while. But my advice to people who are getting close to retirement or even younger is to plan, to
Hmm.
definitely plan, to save as much as you can. But also, I think have a plan, but know that it just might not turn out as you expected.
Right.
Because if you think that you have this ideal plan and that's the way it's going to be, you're going to be disappointed because everything doesn't work out exactly as you think it's going to. In my case, not at all like I thought.
Right.
Well, as an example, I mean, my husband and I used to talk about who was going to die first. I know that sounds like a terrible subject, but you know, and I said, well, obviously I'm going to die first. I've had cancer. I've gone through all these things. I've had numerous surgeries. I mean, I've been sick. He was the healthiest thing on the planet
Yeah.
and he died and I'm
Right.
still here.
Well,
The other thing
you say that's may not a fun thing to talk about, but I think couples need to talk about that. Yeah, where are the bank accounts? How do you turn the lawnmower on?
well,
What's the garage door code?
we didn't talk about that. We just talked about who was going to die first
Yeah,
and what we were going to do. He always said, well, I need to die first because I couldn't handle everything
right,
that
right.
you do. And I said, well, same with me. And I had to live through it and I couldn't handle it, you know.
Do you think that
Um,
couples should talk about that though? And not that you're going to die first, and
oh,
in that kind of funny way, but in that should they actually talk? Okay, if you go first, what happens? If I go first, what happens? And actually plan that
yes,
out.
absolutely. Because when my husband died, I was pretty much alone in St. George. Oh, I had a couple of neighbors that I was acquaintances with, but I was 4 hours away from any family.
Yeah,
Um, and it becomes very real, very real. And I didn't know how to mow a lawn. I didn't know how to do things that my husband just automatically took care of.
right.
Um, and so I had to learn to do a lot of things. I mean, I wasn't familiar. Well, I was familiar, obviously, but I didn't know what to do with a hammer and a screwdriver and all those tools that were in the
Hmm.
garage. I had a 1934 whatever in the garage. What am I going to do with that?
Right.
Um, there were all kinds of things that I had to do that there's no plan for. There's
So
just no plan
how
for.
have you learned these things?
So,
Do you use YouTube or the internet? How did you
well,
learn to do all these things?
my sons did help a lot.
Okay, great.
My sons helped a lot. I had one neighbor that was kind of a nosy neighbor.
Hmm.
And he would come over and tell me how to do things. Not that I requested it, but
Right.
he did help me a lot. So yeah. But yeah, and here where I am now, I don't have to do the gardening. I don't have to do snow removal, and that's a real perk in living in this kind of a community.
Sure.
Um, excuse. So I have enjoyed living here, but you know, I think I think the reason that and I have to say I'm very happy. I'm happy with my life now.
Hmm.
Do I miss my husband? Of course, but I can't dwell on that.
Right.
It is, I've got a thing in my kitchen that says it is what it is. And that's pretty much how I live my life. It is what it is, you know? There are
Hmm.
certain things that I can't change, but I can decide how I'm going to live every day of my life. That's a
Right.
choice that I can make every single morning, and I do. I get up thinking I am so blessed to have another day. And
Right.
I think having a positive attitude is huge in retirement. I think some people sit and watch television, and I think that certainly has its place in my life, but it does not consume my life.
Right.
I like to go and do and be active. I am way more healthy now than I've ever been
Oh, I was
because,
gonna ask about your health. Yeah.
yes, I am more healthy now than I've ever been in my life because it's a priority to me.
Hmm.
Before, I think I was kind of healthy, but I didn't work at it.
Right.
Now I work at it. I consciously eat good foods. I try to exercise. I don't do as much as I should, but I think for young people, boy, your health is the most important thing. It should be the most important thing, even before money. But for retirement, health is everything.
Right.
We have, in my community, I have 93-year-old people who are walking every single day,
Hmm.
and they're incredible. I have other people in my neighborhood that are 80 that don't ever come out of their houses.
Right.
So I choose to be active, and I choose to um have a purpose.
Hmm.
Even
Yeah.
if my purpose is cleaning the garage, I have a purpose every day,
Right.
and I write it
Do you think that,
down.
like, I'm glad you write it down. I think that's a key thing. Do you think the 93
I
year
do.
old who's still out there walking every day, that's by design, isn't it? It's a conscious choice to live like that, right?
Absolutely.
It doesn't happen by
Absolutely.
accident. Yes,
No.
I
Yeah.
do tell my clients oftentimes that when your top priorities is your physical health, also your mental and emotional health. And
Oh, yeah.
unfortunately, I can't walk or lift weights on behalf of my clients. You got to do that yourself, right? I can't eat better for you. You got to do that yourself. And that's
No,
where
and
some of
I
your
think,
priorities need to lie.
yeah, I started really taking care of myself, if you will.
Hmm.
Very shortly after my husband died, I thought I need to be here for my children,
Hmm.
for my grandchildren, and selfishly for me. I want to
Right.
see them graduate from high school and college, and I want to be there for their weddings.
Right.
I have young grandchildren, and I'm still hoping that I can do that. And my health has not always been that great, but I
Hmm.
feel good now. I feel good, and I work at it.
Right. Right.
I don't think you just assume it's going to happen, because it doesn't. It's planned. That part is definitely planned. Yeah, I think people need to save. They need to plan, as much as planning with knowing there's not maybe going to be, that plan might not really come to fruition. But
Yeah. You'll
if it
always
does,
make
great. If it does,
adjustments.
yeah, I had to make a huge adjustment, and I did. Um, but invest in a plan, invest in money, obviously,
Right.
invest some of your money, don't keep it under the mattress. Um, have a purpose. Oh, that's the other thing. Have a purpose, a hobby, something. I have very good friends that are both retired, and they don't have anything to do.
Mm.
So they stay home all the time. And they don't have a lot of money, but they have a really nice home and stuff, but they don't have a lot of extra money. But neither one of them has a hobby or anything, so they just kind of sit around.
Hmm.
And I think that's really sad. I mean, I personally, not only do I like to travel, but I love photography. I've got a little tiny art kind of studio in my home. that I like to do arts and crafts. And I think I'm rarely bored. I'm rarely
Mm-hmm.
bored. And sure, do I watch television? Yeah, when I feel like it. Do I?
Right.
And one of my goals last year, and this sounds so silly, but I I purposely said, okay, every single month I'm going to go to a movie
Mm-hmm.
theater. And so I did, because I never went to movies. And I thought, there's one, 5 minutes away. And I thought, I'm just going to take myself to go to a movie and have popcorn and enjoy myself.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't wanting to go to anywhere by myself. So I'm starting to do a lot of things. And it's taken, my husband's been gone 5 years, a lot to do things alone.
Right.
Sometimes it's really hard for me to do things alone. However, I'm alone, but I'm not lonely. I I take care of me. I've got neighbors I can talk to. I've got my family. I've got friends I can talk to. Um, I just take one day at a time. And for me, life is good.
Yeah,
Life is
that's
good.
this is
It's
a
not as planned.
yeah, not as planned. Yes. Was it did
No,
John Lennon say that? Life is what happens when you're busy making other plans.
it's true. It's true.
But
And I was making a lot of plans that, yeah, didn't
yeah,
happen. But now I make plans and I try to make them happen.
right. And it sounds like you're just trying to enjoy the journey with some of its detours. And I love what you said
Yes, and
about
they always have detours.
having a purpose every day, getting up and there's got to be something you want to do, right? Whether it's clean the garage or go to a movie or travel to Africa. That's a wide
Yeah.
variety of purposes, but you still have a purpose. And all those things I think matter.
Yes, and I think having a purpose in life when you're in retirement, especially so you and your spouse, if you're lucky enough to have a spouse
Right.
there, don't get on each other's nerves. I mean, you don't want to, you haven't spent time together if you're both working. Um, and you're not used to being 24/7 with another person.
Yes.
And I think that has to be talked about too. What are we going to do when we have to be together all the time?
Mm-hmm.
And that's another reason to have some outside interests besides each other.
Right.
Have a hobby, have something. My husband loved to play golf. I had no interest in golf whatsoever. So he would play golf, I would do something else. And that's why it worked though, because we weren't together 24/7.
Right. Yeah, I read the story of a couple retired, and he also loved golf, and they worked it out to where he would take a 2 or 3 day golf trip with his buddies about every 2 months.
Oh
So he was completely gone, and she, would breathe a sigh of relief just to kind of have some space to herself. And he had fun with the boys on
yeah,
the golf course, and then they come back as a reunion, and they were happy to see each other again, and that pattern went on, and that
yeah,
worked for them. And some people they can be together 24 hours a
exactly.
day. Some it works out great, but that's a good discussion to
Yeah, I'm
have
sure.
is how are you going to manage our time? Are we together constantly? And if you want your space, let your spouse know that it's not because I don't love you. I just need a little
Yeah.
bit of space. And that could actually make the heart grow fonder, right? Absence makes the heart grow fonder. So
Yes,
that's a
it
good
actually
discussion to
is
have with your
because you
spouse.
care.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
Because you care.
it is because you care. Everybody, I think, needs some personal space sometimes.
Yes.
And all those things, I think a lot of conversations have to happen before retirement. Um, it's not the same as just, oh, now we're home all the time.
Yes.
There's a lot more to it. There's a lot more
That
to it.
reminds me, I created a video called 5 Must-Have Conversations for a Happy, Successful Retirement. So I'll actually put that on the same
Oh,
page and maybe a link down below. So if you want to learn more about those conversations, watch my other video. Okay. The 5 Must-Have Conversations. Anything else you
yeah.
want to share with us or the listeners, Kathy? You've done a
Well, I
great
think
job so
I've
far.
pretty much gone through it all. I just think that make the most of every single day. Every day's a gift. Untie those ribbons, and make
Right.
it the best you can do.
Okay. This has been a wonderful interview, Kathy. Thank you so much for your
Thank you.
time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Martin. It was kind of fun. I was very nervous and I didn't even hardly look at my note. Well, I looked at them, but not as much as I thought I would have to. So, yeah,
Okay.
you
Thank you
made it
very much.
easy. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
I hope you enjoyed the interview and learned something that you can use in your own retirement. If you've been retired for more than 1 year and you'd like to be a guest on the podcast to share your story, please visit storiesofretirement.com. If you have a question about retirement, or maybe you're not even sure where to begin, I offer all of my listeners a 1-hour consultation at no charge. whether by phone, video call, or right here in my Orem office. I'll do my best to answer your questions, to help you avoid costly mistakes, and then put you on the pathway to a successful retirement. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, at Achieve More Retirement, our goal is to help you live your life on purpose.